Hey guys, another episode of the Crossroads, which is a MikroTik talk show, almost a podcast, but not quite. And today's topic is the MikroTik naming scheme. So let me just share a quick fact with you. So the name of the show is Crossroads, but we also had a product named Crossroads. Discontinued now, it's an old product. And the name of that product comes from a famous blues movie where this young guitar prodigy battles the Satan himself in a guitar duel. So that's a fun fact for you, but back to the topic. So I'm joined today by Jans Medis and Kaspars Krampis. Both have a lot of experience with MikroTik and obviously the product names. So, dear colleagues, right off the bat, what can you tell about the MikroTik naming scheme to someone who doesn't know anything about the naming scheme? So, what's up with the complicated product names? Is there a purpose to this?
It's a complicated answer, but I like to break it down into like in the history. So we had a classical era when everything was beautiful, simple, and so on. Then we have had Dark Ages when everything was messed up and so on. And now we got the Renaissance and now modern era. So we will talk deeply about each of these periods. So yeah, basically it's a complex topic and it also includes many different aspects that most of people don't realize when they talk about product names. And we are not the only company that struggles with the product names. Like just take a look at CPU names, monitor names, and so on and so forward. So I think all industry here in electronics have some struggles, and we are here to discuss our struggles and what were the lessons that we learned and what mistakes we made and what are we still fighting with every day with every new product.
So we're not saying the situation is perfect, but we are saying that there's a reason and there's a purpose, a goal that we're trying to reach. So do you have anything to add, Kaspars, now?
Not much. Just about the first. How you said called the first
Classical.
classical? So the classical era was what, like everything started with RB and 3 digits.
Also beginning of 4 digits. So classical era was very simple. So first of all, I was still a junior worker here at MikroTik, so I had nothing to do with the naming at that point in time. So let's start from the beginning. RB230. So rotor board that has 3 Ethernets and 0 wireless interfaces.
And the digit 2, what does that mean?
Just I don't know. I arrived, it was already named like that.
But usually the first digit meant like CPU series.
Yes. Probably my guess is that router RB100 series was in development still, but 230 materialized first, as it often happens. So in the classical era, then we went for RB532. So 5 series, 3 Ethernets, 2 wireless, and simplified version RB511. Then there was a more affordable version, so 100 series, RB133, 112, 150. Then we went for Rotorboard 400 series, lots of boards there. And then, like, first things started to go wrong. RB600. We wanted to develop a single board, and then from that make lots of products. So we decided during development just to call it RB600. and then name each product separately afterwards. But somehow, the details escapes me now. We just released it as single product RB600. That's it.
So the 0 and 0 would mean 0 Ethernet, 0
Nothing.
wireless.
It was placeholder name during development that somehow just got released.
And what that product had actually?
4 wireless, if I'm not mistaken, 3 Ethernets. Yeah, I need to look it up. Probably editor can find
Put
the
it on
picture,
screen.
put it on the screen, and so on. So then was the first product that I got partially involved in the naming. It was Rotorboard 700 series, so RB711, with first-in built-in wireless interface that's soldered on the PCB itself. So 5HND, that was actually one of the first my involvements when I tried to make a standardized naming concept to separate each model from each other. So yes, there was like 3 power levels. So first of all, 5 shows that it's 5 gigahertz. Then there's possibility 2 gigahertz. If you see 52, that means that interface support both, and you need to choose in software which frequency you want to use. Then there was power, high power or super high power, which depended on how many amplifiers you actually have on the chains.
Yeah, it says here that high is 23-24 dBm, and high power is 25-26, and super high power is 27 or more.
It was originally like that for that N standard 802.11n that we developed. And then the standard small letter, and then how many chains. So dual, if they're single, we don't write it, and so on. So that was the first, I would not say my decision, it was my influence on the naming.
So did you come up with this alone, or did you have a team, brainstorms?
Of course, there was a problem because we wanted to release many 711s for each separate solution. So 2 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, low power, high power versions. And to certify those, each of them need a separate name, and of course, for customers to recognize them, each of those need separate names. So I needed to come up with a naming solution that are ready for every possibility that we might load on it.
Mm-hmm.
So 711 was your first one. Do you have it at home on the wall?
No.
But this is a good opportunity to have some historic context. Like, was this something that was your initiative, or someone came to you and said, "Oh, Janis, what are we going to do?" Like, was it something that you guys back then saw as a challenge or as an opportunity to make this? Because nowadays I've heard people say that these names are great because I take one look at the name and I know at least what ports are there. So did you have this vision in mind, or is it like a happy accident, or like how would you describe it?
If I remember it correctly, and forgive me, it was 15 years ago, I think that someone was just too tired to think up the names. That someone probably was designer, because he is good at designing PCB, but he don't know how to name them.
Mm-hmm.
So he asked boss, and boss decided that, what do you think we should call it?
Mm-hmm. And let me ask, Kaspers, so for example, you and your students in the classes, do these names, from your experience, do they work like this? Is it easy to teach someone to look at the product name like the CSS 32624G?
You are jumping way ahead. We are still in classical era.
Okay, classical error. Let's then finish up with the classical error.
Okay, yeah. So till that 711, every product that we have had RB, 3 letters. First was series, then was how many Ethernet ports or wired ports this has, and the last one, how many wireless interfaces possible, and then information about wireless.
Theoretical wireless, right?
Yeah.
So it could be either a built-in or a slot for a card.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't mean that there is actually a wireless interface on the board.
So at that point, everything was easy and not complicated. There was not many products, but we are slowly and steady running out of numbers. So what to do? So 800, 900 series, and then what? The decision was made that we will not stop at 3 letters, we will go to 4 letters.
Digits, you mean, right?
Digits, yes, 4 digits. RB1000 was born. Who remembers that product?
I'm too young.
That was, we actually still have that series going. It's a device, small device that have 4 high-speed ports. At that point, it was 4 gigabits. Now we have 4 100 gigabits.
I think we have one of those here, the outdoor version, right? But
So the switch was also an RB.
Everything was RB.
Okay.
And there was no switches at that point. We haven't made a single switch.
Okay.
then later, I think nowadays we don't put RB in front of any devices, right?
No. That's the start of Dark Ages. So, let me continue. So 4-digit numbers were born. Rotorboard 1000, Rotorboard 1100, Rotorboard 1200. And then we came to year 2012. And this bad boy was born. As we were already in 4 digits. And that product had 11 ports on it, 10 wired ports and 1 SFP. We decided to call it 2011. And as we planned it more like industrial solution, as we discussed in our previous L009 video that you can find in the link somewhere below, we started to call it 2011. It was actually the birthplace of our form factor, this form factor that we continued 3011, 4011, and now 5009. So till then, everything good. And then trouble started when we started to differentiate our product lines. There was first switch, so affordable device that have 5 ports, doesn't have CPU, just for switching. RB260, no, 6 ports. Yeah.
An SFP.
Yeah, SFP and 5 Ethernets. And it was called RB260. And at that point, people were starting to confuse because it reuses the RB, it uses original 230 series. So we needed to start start to differentiate products and so on. So Dark Ages. Dark Ages started with the ugly truth that in IT, to use your solution, your products need to be certified. And then I'm not talking about the European or American official certification. Even in companies, before they apply, can use some equipment, they need to certify some specific equipment.
Like for safety?
That this solution is, you are allowed to use these products in solutions in your company solutions, like towers and so on, so this is safe and so on. So there was a big client, I will not name the country and I will not name the client, that used RB750G a lot in their solutions. It was big client, giving us a good income part. And at that point, we basically were moving from Rotorboard 700 series to Rotorboard 900 series. Upgrade processor-wise, memory-wise, performance-wise. So we made a new board, and we were about to release RB 950. when the client replied that he's certified 750, and if we change the name, he can't use our products and he needs to recertify everything, which might not be possible in his particular situation. So at that point, a decision that we regretted afterwards was made to make RB750G R2, revision 2. So basically we moved away from our default naming scheme just to satisfy the clients. And this, why I remember this particular example, at this point we started to think that we might need marketing names and encourage our customers to certify their solutions with marketing name. This way we can change product codes as we wish for the next products, but leave the same marketing name. So soon after, HAPS, Home Access Points, was born, CAPS, Ceiling Access Points, WAPS, Wall Access Points, MAPS, Micro Access Points. What else?
Hex.
HEX. Anyone knows what HEX stands for?
Home exchange or
Home Ethernet Exchange.
I actually asked ChatGPT about product names of MikroTik, and ChatGPT comes up with all sorts of nonsense all the time. So, for instance, says ChatGPT, HAP stands for Home Access Point. That is correct. And HEX is derived from the Latvian word for 6, representing routers with 6 Ethernet ports. 6 in Latvian is seši, not hex. So, yeah.
Hex does not have
Yeah.
6 Ethernet ports.
So it's, you said Ethernet exchange, right?
Ethernet, Home Ethernet Exchange.
Yeah.
And in this period, these kind of exceptions were made, and some of the mistakes were made, and at that point we decided that we need to have some kind of system and some kind of guy that follows all these inconsistencies and tries to fix it as soon as possible. And I don't remember when, but somewhere there, after these things, I became like a responsible person for naming. One thing that people don't realize is that we use our names also for our software, and based on the naming, software knows what features expect that board has. So what it needs to load and so on. At least in early days that was completely true. Now we hard code some options when on the factory installs also, but at the beginning it was that. So if somebody knows me from the trainings, you probably know I'm a very methodical guy. So yeah, I went full blast into it and decided that we need more product lines than RB, because RB is basically historic. It was good when we had few products, now we have many. And together with the team and bosses, we came up with the names, new series names. First of all, the main was CCR, Cloud Core Router. And I decided, as that router series features lots of CPU cores, the naming should first of all show amount of CPU cores, and then all the interfaces that that product has. So our CCR 1072, 1G, 8S plus, so 1 gigabit Ethernet and 8 SFP pluses. Also, at the same time, 2 new series was born, CRS, Cloud Router Switch, and CSS, Cloud Smart Switch.
What do these names mean?
So, Cloud Router Switch is a product that has both switch chip and some kind of CPU. That CPU can be less powerful just to run RouterOS, almost nothing more. Maybe you can run some tunnel with 10 megabits speed or something, but it's really just to run RouterOS. And Cloud Smart Switch is the product that's have a switch but no CPU whatsoever and can't run RouterOS. It just has its own switch OS, which doesn't require full-scale CPU to run it. But these CRSs and CSSs also came in different factors. They can be rack-mounted, they can be outdoor, indoor, and that's why we also need to specify case type. So if it's full-size rack mount, then it's RM in the end. If it's smaller, we just specify that it's indoor. We don't specify case type for CCR as it was planned originally that rack mount will be the only form factor that we'll release it on.
However,
you all know that we have CCR 2004 PCI Express card, for example.
we have passive cooling.
We have passive cooling. So historically, rack mount is not written. If it's not written in CCR series, it's just rack mount. If something else is written, that it's overrides. So that's where I got like full scale in these three big product series in creating a system that should last all the possible futures that I could imagine at that point when I.
And that's the Renaissance.
That's the Renaissance, yes.
Yeah, makes sense. And these product names actually, well, they make sense. Like I look at it and, for instance, people sometimes ask about routing features on a CSS, but look at the three letters. It's a switch. So I wanted to ask Kaspars, from your experience teaching people, do these product names with the ports, with some of the features clearly visible in the product naming, is this something that is easy for you to teach someone? Does it click, or is it still like something that people need to really pay attention? And
Yeah, actually, it works very well. For the switches and CCRs, it's very understandable. And for the switches, actually, there's one additional trick built in the naming. There's always that second and third digit is the total amount of ports.
yeah.
And then afterwards, those ports are described. So 26 is 22 plus 2.
Right.
24 plus 2. So it's like a built-in check.
One mention, those names doesn't include management ports. Those are only ports that are connected to the switch chip.
Yeah.
So if you have a management port, it's not shown in in naming. And funny thing is that in beginning there was like 100 meg port, which were not important. Then there was 1 gig port, which was also can be neglected. But now modern switches already come with 2 10 gigabit management ports, for example. But they will not be in naming.
But they can be used also for other things than
In CRS, where you know that there is a CPU, you can use it as a full-fledged router because it's cloud router switch.
Okay.
So it has a combination of CPU and switch.
So sometimes you might get actually more ports than we advertise.
More ports than naming specifies, but those ports are not connected to the switch chip, but connected to the CPU directly.
I guess this is a useful moment to remind everyone about the block diagrams, because if you look at the block diagram, you will see if this management port, for example, runs to the CPU straight or whatever. So you look at the block diagram and you will know for sure.
Also, I can mention some of the what is the English name? Piggybacking, or what was? When you use something to create you use something that you already created to create something else.
Okay, and the thing is?
SFP module naming.
Mm.
All the direct attached cables, all the optical modules that we sell, also piggybacks. I think that the right name for in English is from the switch naming and how we name the interfaces.
Do you have an example, maybe?
Yes, for example, XS, so 25G module, 31LC 10D. It uses 1310 nanometer wavelength. It's LC connector, and it's 10 kilometers DDM.
Mm. Oh,
So-
okay, yeah, it makes sense.
So from the naming, if you know what you look for, you can see exactly what this module is. Also, I had some impact from that system on our antenna names, antenna series. So, for example, MikroTik antenna sector 5 gigahertz, 15 dBi, directional 120 degrees. So that naming will show it. That's one of our products that we released. And also the same system is used for our power supply series. So MikroTik power supplies, 250 watt, 53 volt, and 4.7 amp
What is OD at the end?
outdoor.
Oh, okay, makes sense.
But why OD, not out?
Yeah,
Um,
like the...
Yeah, like for the product, for the switches.
I don't remember actually, because I was like in power supply units more. Our electronic engineers were interested in creating system. I just assisted. So they decided in these names.
Yeah, but we're reaching a problem here, right? So if we try to put more features in the product name, they can get pretty long.
Yes, and it turns out that there's a limit on how long can product name be in several places, actually. First things were like funny. It was an internal MikroTik system database. Only supported certain number of symbols in product name, which we of course can fix. Then we found out that stickers that we put with product name and serial number is limited sizes that you can put on a product. And of course we can increase that. But when we found out that to get the certification, your product needs to be certain length, then we came to the conclusion that we need to shorten something.
And thank God for that.
And then came this like one of the worst case scenario products, which is actually this one.
Which is a really good product.
Yeah, the best case scenario as a
Yes,
product.
but from the naming perspective. So originally, when we developed this product, and those who have this product and looked inside, you can see it on the PCB, it's not a secret. This product could have up to 5 wireless interfaces. So original name for development board had much longer name than one that we released. So it ended up with the fact that we were able only to cool 3 of those interfaces in this case, because board was overheating, so we just took some of the features off, which unfortunately usually happens. We are mostly too ambitious in early development. So this product has 3 wireless interfaces, but we already had product with the same CPU, 2 Ethernets and 3 wireless interfaces, D23. So this is different form factor. We were not able to call it D23 anymore, so we had to stick to original D25 that was in development, so not to confuse with the existing product. That's why D25 came to be. Then this product has 2 5 gigahertz AC wireless, one quadra-core and one dual-core. So for that, you should have like this, or what that we talked, wireless specification, 3 separate parts. Editor probably can put longer name that was originally put in the release, and I had to shorten it somehow to get into the limit that we had. So I just grouped together 5 gigahertz, both quadra-core and dual-core together. So it's a QD.
Yeah, it's shortened here.
Yeah. So that was first encounter with the situation where naming was too long.
But it has RB again.
Yeah, because we didn't think to remove RB at that point. It came later.
Okay. So when did you remove the RB?
Basically, I think it was beginning of COVID, because it was the beginning of modem era for MikroTik. We started to make products with built-in modems, plugged in or soldered in. And the way we thought that naming would be proper, we would use a full product name, then use AND sign, and full modem name.
LTE modem or 5G.
LTE or 3G, 4G, 5G modem, full modem name. And as soon as I did that, we again ran into the same problem. It was too long for certification, something needs to go. And as we already ran out of numbers for series, we already run into the letters for the series. We just decided that we will leave RB just for numbers, and all the letter series will run without RB, giving me 2 additional spaces for naming.
Okay. So that's why like 5009 still has the RB,
Yes.
but Chateau does not.
It kind of makes sense because, well, it is kind of weird if a product is called just the number, right? Like, oh, that's a 5009. That's what we call it, but it's a weird name. Like, letters make more sense than numbers, I guess. But on the previous topic, an interesting point that I want to point out, you mentioned that it had potential for more interfaces, but it was overheating. And this is something that I have noticed when you guys ask, where is this feature? Usually it comes down to either price, we can add the feature, but the product will be more expensive, which will make it less interesting to you. Or it becomes too hot, and again, you can always deal with heat, but for a price.
And lately, availability.
The parts, yeah.
Yes, that's a latest trend. We would love to add this feature, but we simply can't.
I guess on the parts availability we could do sometimes another talk. Like I bet many people are wondering, is the situation getting better? How are we dealing with it? And so on.
Well, if you take a look at our Reddits and so on, there's more and more people popping up. I finally received my 5009. I finally received this and that product.
Yeah.
So you can judge from that situation is getting better.
It is. And let me just remind you once more, a way to improve the situation is don't wait for some product to become like available, add to cart in a shop. Write or call your distributor and make a reservation. So when a device becomes available, you will get it. And those people who didn't make a reservation, well, tough luck, but you will get it. So make a reservation. Don't wait. Don't wait. Okay, moving on. So, product names. What else is there to discuss? We talked about dropping the RB and why it came back. Then, of course, we have some exceptions, right? Still, no
Yeah.
system is perfect.
It always is, and there's some aspects. So how deep should you go with this naming thing? So, for example, one of the problems that we ran into was the slots. It turns out not all Mini PCI Express slots are the same. Some of the Mini PCI Express slots have USB lines in them, and some of them has PCI Express lines, and some of them has both. So in one slot you can put USB modem in PCI Express card slot. In other you can put wireless card. I think M33 is a very popular product where you can see that.
So you're saying that all these differences of the PCI slots we also show in the product names?
It depends
On what?
how long the product name
Ah,
turns out to be,
Whether you can add it or not, yeah.
and how I can, for example, show that one slot is with both and the third slot is only with USB lines. So naming has its limitations. And if you think Mini PCI Express slot is bad, think again, because there's M2 slot, which can have just USB lines, just PCI Express lines, just SATA lines, PCIe or SATA together, or USB and PCI together.
Okay.
So 5 options for M.2.
I guess the summary here is that as a vendor, we want to use the product names to be useful. Like, it doesn't help anyone if the product is called to, I don't know, Daisy, Sun, whatever, and Mr. Apricot, for example. But if you can have some of the features in the name, then when you look at a table with many products, you will instantly see, oh, these are the features that I want, these are the features that I don't want.
Yeah,
But-
it helps a lot. It helps a lot, especially for these CRS switches and CCR routers. Right away, you can understand like the
Yeah.
basic idea of what that product has.
But the limitation here is that the names get longer and longer, and also, so what I heard today is that when you try to be really precise and specific with the naming, you run into problems that for each type of technology and standard, you have like variations and variations and variations. So you have to make the choice how deep you want to go with the names. And you have to draw the line somewhere. And I guess the point of today is that the situation, like I said in the beginning, is not perfect, but it serves a purpose. And what you need to remember is that here at MikroTik, we are only human. So it's not just some AI brain thing in a jar that generates these names. Behind every name there's a person, usually Jānis Mēģis.
Code, production codes.
Yeah,
I'm mainly responsible for production codes. How the names are made, that's completely different story.
but not every product has a marketing name.
Not every product has a marketing name, but also the concept like cloud core router and so on. Yeah, that was not my decision. That was, let's say, many people were involved, and final decision how to name it was actually John's. John Tully, our boss.
So we come now to the topic of marketing names. For example, this you would not call it usually RB, D25G, and so on. I know this as the audience. So, but not all the products have a marketing name. So, do you have any context on that? Who comes up with the marketing names?
Which products actually need marketing
Yeah.
names?
First of all, those one that has very long and not unique names. So, for example, D25, yeah, it somehow blends in all D series, and it doesn't stand out, and it's way too long. So it needed. For example, RB 5009, which is more industrial, so not for home users mainly, And also it's only board in that 5000 series. So if somebody says it's 5009, then it's completely clear what you're talking about.
Yeah, there are just two options. Yeah, with
PoE,
yeah.
not PoE or outdoor.
Yes.
So basically, those that we see that products are too complicated needs the marketing name. So audience was one of them, and it was long decision. Fun fact: original development board name, while the product materialized, was just PCB. It was called Super Duper.
Super duper.
Yes. It only changed name just before the release to the certification, and release to the customers. And we had funny names for many products at that point. That's how PCB designers just name their own products.
Anything else? Any other examples?
If they are safe for work.
Some of the names we actually might use in the future, so I don't want to spoil them.
Okay.
I remember when Audience came out, I liked the concept. One of the ways we looked at the name was that your Wi-Fi has an audience. And the whole story was that traditionally there's this struggle that a lot of devices, like for example, I like how this type of router looks. I don't mind the antennas and everything. But a lot of families, they don't want to have such a device out there in the open. But this one, it looks like a vase, like a work of art, and the shadows and everything, it's just beautiful. So we came up with the whole, your Wi-Fi has an audience, bring it out in the open story. But yeah, I think it's the only example where the name has such a deep, a story behind it. For example, Chateau.
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 It
We have it somewhere.
In previous video, it was hanging over there.
But
But so basically,
Here's one.
yes. So it basically looks like a wall that you, like protection wall or something, that went to, it looks like castle.
Oh,
And
it
then
does.
we started to think what is the not funny, but interesting ways to say castle. And of course the French has the best sounding names. So that's how we came to this name.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but that was also a process of just guessing and sending ideas, brainstorming, and then suddenly from 5-6 persons that brainstorm, 3 of them or 4 of them liked, oh, chateau. Or chateau, how you pronounce it in French. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, that's how some of the names are born.
And no matter how we pronounce it, there's always someone in the comments saying, no, it's the other way. So we've tried chateau, chateau, and all kinds of variations. We don't know how to pronounce it, sorry. But it makes sense that the home users, so basically, home users get marketing names because they also care less about very specific features. And the more complex devices are usually managed by more technically educated people who just want to see the features like this. So,
But the main part of Chateau is featured in the name as well, the modem category.
like Chateau LTE18,
Yeah,
Chateau 5G.
because when you have several, you somehow need to like distinguish them between themselves, because you can't have same marketing name for more than one product.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So that also is a nice choice, I think. That,
But then again, there's a question how many words it's okay in marketing name.
Sure. Yeah, like now we have AX to distinguish between the AC boards.
Yeah.
That didn't have AC.
Then there is light also.
Well, we got to give home users credit. So I think people can process like some naming variations. it should be okay.
No, there's also some ugly examples for the marketing name. So let's go back to that same situation when some of the clients were, for some reason, wanted to stick to the original name, that product that they used originally that we discontinued, RB260GS. But we had to update it, and we updated it and called it like our new series, Cloud Smart Switch 106 5G 1S. And to satisfy our customers, we just put the marketing name RB260GS.
Oh. Well, that is
That-
funny how both names are like product codes.
That's, yeah, RB260GS is actually marketing name. I don't like that solution, but that was dirty fix. And that, as far as I can remember, is last time that thing was allowed. Thank God MikroTik is now big enough so we don't get influenced by customers anymore like that, and we can name our products properly every time. But historically, there was such situation, and that's why it's called like this. So yeah,
But it came initially out as RB260, right?
that's the first product.
The code as well, yeah.
Yeah, RB260GS. Then we ran it for years. Then we discontinued it and updated it to CSS 106.
I think nowadays the names make sense. Like I don't see a lot of problems like this nowadays. But one thing that sometimes gets confusing is the squared and cubed devices. Like some people say HAPAX3, some say cubed, which it is. Like if you know the meaning of a smaller number, then so do you think in the future we'll have like a HAPAX to the power of fourth, or?
No, just because the way how you said it. Because squared or cubed, it's much more easier to say
Yeah.
than the power of 4.
Oh, thank God.
But yeah, it was also some brainstorming idea, because everyone liked this HAP naming, and then they wanted to stick because it's home access point, and as we already have home access point AX, we needed IC, I think the first was.
Yeah, HAP IC.
Yeah, and then we just changed case for better Wi-Fi or cooling. Yeah, that's
I
just.
didn't get that. Could you try again?
What was that?
My my laptop wants to join the conversation, and yeah, we also have some questions from the audience. As not this one.
I know the Kaspers has prepared a list of questions.
Oh, you do?
I already asked some of those actually,
Ah.
so I'm just slipping them in
Well,
quietly, one by one.
I remember you had a question from someone about acronyms, right? If the device is like LIG.
Yeah, what these all mean and how they actually
I think there was LIG, ATL.
SXT.
So it's funny because if you ask around, let's talk with Normans, who is like 22 years in the office, or me, or designer of the board, each of them has a different story. So for example, I remember that we had a product, so we had a team of navigation instruments that we used for our wireless products. Quadrant, sextant.
Here's what I found.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on. It keeps speaking.
Quadrant, sextant. Then we released smaller versions of them, and so we just make acronyms. So a sextant went to SXT, quadrant went to QRT, and that was it. I talked with Normus recently. He thinks that original idea from SXT actually came from whiskey glass. But who remembers that now? It was like many, many years ago.
Yeah, the same goes with ATL. I've heard that it means alien technology level.
It actually does.
Oh,
Because that dish looks like saucer.
Yeah, it does. But well, then how did the name for disk light came to be? It looks like a disk and that's it.
Yes.
Sometimes the answer is simple, really.
And don't overcomplicate it.
And I just realized another thing with your podcast. We also have like a naming issue, MTU. Does it means Magis talks to users or MikroTik universe? So it's never simple with us.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
So just our main thing to make up a name that you can remember and can talk about. That's all naming should do. What does it mean? It's up to you. Even our names. Each has a different meaning, historically, biblically, and so on. So
Yeah.
And what about light? The spelling of the light.
so we do it American way, basically.
Okay.
LITE, right? I don't think we have variations of that. It's always light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
Sorry, my voice is gone.
mine too. I don't know what's up with you. I can tell what's up with me. I had a karaoke party 2 days ago. And instead of singing, we shouted for some reason. It was just pure joy. But I lost my voice in the process.
I think that I went swimming in the sea. That was a little bit too cold.
Well, Kaspars, do you have anything to add
You are
on
the last one with the voice. so
Yeah, you have the last
help
one.
us out.
A question that I have been wanting to ask but never actually got around. Switch chip series names, what do they mean? We have 300 series, 500 series, 600 series.
That's exactly. That's the series of the switch chip. Each series uses specific family of switch chips and has a different feature set.
Mm-hmm.
So you can expect one feature set from 300 series, another feature set from 500 series,
Mm-hmm.
and also next one from 600.
Okay, so different feature sets.
Yes.
But the bigger does not mean, higher number does not mean more features, just different.
Just the next series. So if we decide to go for 600, for example, a more affordable series.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on a deep level, I feel like we are coming to the end.
Yes, please.
Before we both lose our voice. But one thing, well, two things that I would like to say in conclusion is first, I feel like the main takeaway from today should be that we are not crazy. Like the product names, we try to give you some context. So, yeah, I hope that these names make more sense to you now. And the second thing, I would encourage you to open the MikroTik documentation, the help page. We'll post a link. And just take a look at what the letters in the product names mean. Because we have a document which explains the logic behind every letter. And I'm not saying that you should like memorize everything. But if you find yourself dealing more with a specific type of devices, you might as well just pay attention to the product names, and over time you will just memorize what the different letters mean. It will become easier for you. So yeah, just take a look at the explanation of every letter and take advantage of these names. Don't let them confuse you. Let them help you. So that's it from me. Do you guys have any last words in this video? If not, then
I think it has been already said. Yanis has said everything as we see it clearly.
yeah, I feel like it's been like 40 minutes or so. It should be enough for an almost podcast. So see you in the next videos, and leave some questions in the comments. We'll try to answer them. And yeah, until next time.
Okay. Bye.